Good afternoon, sir. And I'm saying sir because how do I pronounce your name?
Yeah, thank you. It's Dimitri. It's almost
Dimitre.
Russian. Yeah,
Why do you say it's almost Russian? Do you have Russian origins, or it's just you realize it sounded almost Russian?
yeah. I'm only Brazilian. It's 100% Brazilian. So I just realized it sounded Russian.
All right, Dimitre, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So you're Brazilian, based in Brazil. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. As I asked you ahead of time, maybe to think of three keywords or three numbers that would define you. Do you have a short intro that you could share with me and with any viewer who's going to watch this video?
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to describe me just a few three words, but I would say that I would maybe curious, learner, and passionate. I think that those are three main characteristics that align very well with the data science and machine learning field. So the idea is that once you realize that you are probably going to study for the rest of your life, so you need to be a learner and very passionate about what you do because the field is evolving very fast and every day you get a new breakthrough, a new state of the art result. So I think once you realize that and get those characteristics, you probably will have a very good career. So this is something that at least I like to think about myself.
What made you go into data science and machine learning in the first place? I'm curious.
Yeah, it was at the very end of my graduation. So before that, I was a software engineer and I was working for almost 3 years. But for some reason, I went to Coursera and I did the deep learning specialization from end to end, and I almost fell in love with the field. So all the data science and machine learning, the algorithms, the base behind the ideas was so exciting that I changed the fields and I left a job as a software engineer and become an intern in data science. So far, it probably has been the best decision, professionally speaking, and have been working very well for me.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. You've developed a number of open source projects on GitHub. Three of those have so far been selected, curated on devlibrary.withgoogle.com. I saw, if I'm not mistaken, you're using the Vision API, if not, or maybe some vision principles behind some machine learning models. And you've played with some Kaggle competitions as well. I was particularly impressed by one of those, which was around detecting blindness before it actually happens. Do you want to talk more a little bit about your open source projects? What do they do and how you came to code those projects and share them on GitHub?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So the very first idea that I got to start building open source projects was to develop some kind of portfolio about myself, so I could show my work to others, maybe recruiters, maybe people trying to get into the field. So what I started doing when I started learning machine learning was to get into Kaggle competitions. So I decided since I'm going to do a lot of learning, a lot of experiments, and I will create a lot of assets, I will try to organize everything in a GitHub repository so I can share it open source and maybe it will help others. So this was my very first idea, and it was probably one of my first projects open source on GitHub, really projects open source on GitHub from Kaggle competitions. So the basic idea was to learn, and while I was doing it, I built something to maybe help others to also maybe learn with me.
What surprised you as you were using some of Google's technologies or as you were using the Kaggle platform? Anything that surprised you in one way or another? Any challenges or anything that pleasantly surprised you? It was more difficult or more easy than you initially thought it was?
Yeah, probably both of them are very aligned, the TensorFlow and Kaggle as well. Because when I started learning machine learning a while ago, it was still TensorFlow 1.x. So the API was not very clear. There was a lot of duplicated code. And one thing that helped me a lot was mainly the community. So almost everything that I had a question and did not know how to do it, I would search on Stack Overflow or on Google itself, and I would get a lot of help from the community. And Kaggle, it was the same thing. I was I knew almost nothing about machine learning, at least the practical part of machine learning. And the community was so amazing. There was a lot of people, a lot of masters and grandmasters sharing a lot of knowledge, very open to discuss and share their code, that I was actually able to learn a lot and very fast. So now I'm also a Kaggle Grandmaster, and a lot of what I do is to share code with others and help in discussions. Try to also help others learn as fast as I did.
So you mentioned you went on Stack Overflow, you try to get help from other more experienced developers. In hindsight, is there anything that you would have done differently? Or in other words, if you were to give some advice to someone who's completely new to data science and machine learning, what would you tell them to get started in, to get as quickly as possible to a level where they feel they can start coding and building models and playing with various APIs?
Yeah, that's a very good point as well, because I think that one of the main things that kind of hold people that back from developing themselves really fast is to sometimes they wait a lot until they learn and read a lot to be almost experts in the field just from the theoretical point. But if they start and put their hands on and start building things and start working, maybe even it's not perfect, maybe if it's not the best result, they will move up and learn very, very fast. It was my case, and I was able to learn a lot faster just by just getting and trying to do it anyway. So one of the advice that I would give is to go ahead and try to do it.
When you say try to do it, would you say picking a GitHub open source project, or would you say playing with code samples? Let's be very specific as to what you mean by being hands-on.
Yeah, I think that it really depends on what the person needs. If he wants to build open source projects, you don't need to contribute with TensorFlow itself or scikit-learn, one of the main libraries. Just go ahead and do your own project, your small project. It can be a Kaggle competition like me that only depends on yourself. If you're able to work with others, it's even better. But if you want to build a project, maybe a small startup, maybe you can build just a small project and see how things go. Maybe try to get a few of your friends to join you as well. But the main idea is just to go ahead and do it. Don't wait too much until you know all the things that you need to know, because you probably won't have time to know everything anyway.
That's fair. Would you mind describing a little bit one of the projects that has been selected and is showcased on Dev Library? Explain what it does, how you came to think about it, and what you'd like to improve, if anything, over time. We'd like to pick one of those and share a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it could be the one project that you mentioned about. It was a Kaggle competition about diabetic retinopathy. So the idea is to get images from the back of the retina from people, and use computer vision models to identify if that person has diabetics or not, or the level between them. So back then, I was just trying to get all the code that I produced on Kaggle and on Google Colab, and joining it together on an organized way to showcase to others and to keep the progress of what I was doing. So the idea, this is the basic idea, so it was a Kaggle competition. And maybe the thing about machine learning competitions and projects is that the field moves so fast. So probably if I needed to go back, I would use some of the new models and new developments on the field to get better results, probably. And one of the things that I also did is that I spent too much time on the models itself. So once you do some work on machine learning, you get to know that usually most of the trade-off, most of the benefits that you get about spending time is looking at the data. So it's probably something that I would do different if I could go back.
It's often said that 70% of the work that goes into building a model is actually on cleaning up the data, having clean data labels and ensuring that all this is well understood without bias. And then the modeling part is maybe not the easiest part, but maybe less in terms of time constraints. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And something that we all learn, we all know that from the beginning. But anyway, we always insisting to spend a lot of time with the models. The thing is that usually people that are machine learning practitioners, they like a lot to play with the models. So they always want to do some tweaking, try some different things. It's the more exciting part. So looking at the data is not very exciting. So we also try to spend a lot of time in machine learning. But usually you get a lot of benefits just cleaning the data, looking at the data, and then studying the data. It's the boring part, but it's the truth.
Some people are sometimes asking me, where can I find data to play with? If I don't have an idea where to get started, What piece of advice would you give them as to where to find some useful data to play with and then run some models on that data? Do you have some ideas?
Yeah, I think that Kaggle must be one of the main platforms to look into the data. So they have a lot of those open source data like Titanic, Chicago taxi data. And also members from the community, they also upload their data sets to the Kaggle. So Kaggle must have a lot of data. I don't have any idea about the storage that they spend on all that data, but it's a huge data. There are a lot of data sets from other topics, so text, image, and anything else. I think that probably one of the easiest way to find data is just to go at Kaggle and try to look for the specific data sets that you want to work with.
You know what YouTubers say, right? Since this is going to be on YouTube, link in the description for everything about Kaggle and Google Colab, where, if I'm not mistaken, you get free resources, right? TPUs, and you can run your models. So it's a great way to play and try to see what you can do with models. Let me take it from a different perspective now. What would be the worst piece of advice that you've heard in our industry of software engineering or machine learning or model creation? What is the worst piece of advice you've heard? Or is there any worst piece of advice? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's one that people have been saying a lot. I think it's been less on the lately, but especially when I began, a lot of people usually said that you need to know a lot of math and a lot of statistics to actually be able to work with machine learning. And absolutely that is not true. So especially if you want to be a machine learning engineer, that you want to use models. You don't want to be a researcher, let's say. So just a practitioner that uses models to solve people's problems and help the company. So of course you need to know some math and statistics, but you don't need to have that deep knowledge about the field. So and it will consume a lot of your time for sure. So I think that was one of the very bad advice that probably hold a lot of people back from getting started in the field.
That's a very positive encouragement that if you just have some basic or mid-level understanding, you can do something. You don't need to be a professor of advanced statistics or maths to be able to play with machine learning models. Dimitre, what is something that excites you going forward? Maybe in terms of Google technologies that you want to play with, that you haven't played with yet, or some releases that you think is coming up. Is there anything that excites you particularly or that you're eager to try out in the coming weeks or months?
Yeah. So there was recently the Google I/O, and they released a lot of useful things and information about new Google projects. And I have been studying and trying to practice a lot with the new MLOps. So Google already has the TFX library that is very useful for people trying to put machine learning products into production. And now they released the new Vertex AI. So I have started taking a look around at Vertex, and I'm very excited to build some little things with the platform. It seems to be very amazing and a lot easier to build the models into production.
Very cool. Any final few words you'd like to share with developers watching this video? Any words of encouragement or any final piece of wisdom that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, I think that being an advocate for the platform for machine learning from Google Technologies is something that I would maybe 1 year or 2 years ago, I would not see myself doing. Maybe giving talks, building open source projects, writing technical topics on Medium, on blog posts as well. But it's something that I just started doing to try to learn more, and I have been developing, I would say, a great passion about it. And it has been used. I have been used to learn a lot and a lot faster. So actually, helping others to learn has helped me a lot more. So maybe there is someone around thinking about doing that as well. I think that reward is very great. You get to help a lot of people. Sometimes you get messages of people saying that your content helped them learn something new, maybe build a project. They want to reach out and ask a few things about you. So I think that the experience is very rewarding. And I will encourage anyone that's thinking about it, go ahead and do it. It's a great experience.
To your point, I'll quote the famous physicist Richard Feynman, and he said, if you want to master something, teach it. So I think it goes exactly along the lines of what you said, share. It's a great way to also learn and improve your own mastery in a specific domain. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I totally agree. Thank you, Sebastian. It has been
Do
an
you
honor.
say obrigado?
Yeah, obrigado.
Obrigado. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sebastian.